From the north side of the San Francisco Bay to Singapore, welcome to Urban X Real Talk Fitness Radio with your host, business owner, lecturer, author, master trainer, Tiaja. With over 30 years of experience in the health and fitness industry, he will challenge the fitness between your ears. So prepare your mind, body, and soul for the revolution of self-care, the evolution of fit, with real talk about real people, real health, real fitness, and the real deal behind our present illness culture. Real talk every time, all the time. Get weekly insights on how to shift your thinking, emoting, eating, training, hydrating, goal setting, and resting for you, the everyday athlete. You can cheat your fitness, but you can't steal your health flow. It's Tuesday, 9 a.m. Let's flow.
I was told I had a fatal cancer and that they would treat me for a while with chemo and radiation, but eventually I would die of the disease.
Did you die from the disease?
No, I'm here today and I'm healthy and happy and so grateful to Dr. Burzynski.
And as we know, all of this was done based on the fact that the United States, which is National Institute of Health, together with pharmaceutical company, which is Elan Pharmaceuticals, was trying simply to steal my invention. That's what they wanted, okay? It's not that we had successful visit from the National Cancer Institute in which they determined that this treatment works great, and they decided that we should go through phase 2 clinical trials, which will be sponsored by them. No. This gave the idea of some higher-ups at FDA to conspire with pharmaceutical company so that they can steal the invention from me and get it because it was good, okay? So that's the whole story, okay? And they knew that if I be still free, they won't be able to do it. Because they knew that if I would sue them, they would have a chance in court because we have our patents before, okay? So that's why the attempts from them to wipe me out financially, to put me to prison, to attack me from every possible angle, FDA, which is federal government, state government, to be able to steal my invention, okay? That's the real thing from the National Cancer Institute and Elan Pharmaceutical. They failed. We survived and we moved forward.
These patents are full of useful information. Aside from noticing their blatant infringement, compositions and methods for treating and preventing cancer using the distribution of anti-neoplastons AS2-1's ingredients, they enthusiastically state the neoplastic conditions treatable by this method include neuroblastoma, leukemia, myelodysplasia, acute glioma, prostate cancer, breast cancer, melanoma, lung cancer, medulloblastoma, and lymphoma, to name a few. They also point out how anti-neoplastons can also be used as a cancer preventative. However, the most revealing piece of information found in these patents is where they state current approaches to combat cancer rely primarily on the use of chemicals and radiation, which are themselves carcinogenic and may promote recurrences and the development of metastatic disease. Let's read that one again, shall we? Current approaches to combat cancer rely primarily on the use of chemicals and radiation, which are themselves carcinogenic and may promote recurrences and the development of metastatic disease.
4 years after my diagnosis, I had run into one of the neuro-oncologists that I met with and told him that I had gone to Dr. Burzynski and I was cured, and he kind of wrote it off. I was very excited to tell him that I was cured, and he really burst my bubble about it, so it was somewhat depressing for me.
You have an amazing story of survival sitting right next to you, a young woman named Jody Gold. Jody, I understand that you actually had a very advanced malignant brain tumor diagnosed right before you turned 32 years old, and here you are with us today.
Exactly, and I'm actually here today because I participated in a clinical trial.
I don't know why Dr. Black is not telling the truth. We conducted 12 phase 2 clinical trials under strict FDA supervision in every one of these trials. We have objective response to the treatment. We prove that treatment works, that treatment can cure incurable brain tumors. The patients can live not only over 5 years tumor-free, but over 10 years tumor-free from the types of tumors where chemotherapy can do absolutely nothing. This is well documented. This was reviewed by the top specialists in the United States, but it was never reviewed by Dr. Black. He didn't review even a single case treated by us.
Why are you not open
treated patients whom Dr. Black advised do not come to us 11 years ago for incurable brain tumors. Her tumor was gone in 2 months. She's now 11 years later in perfect health, living here in L.A., and Dr. Black told her, you'll be wasting time and money coming to Dr. Burzynski.
Why are you not as a good doctor? Why are you not open to this?
Well, actually, I'm open to anything that would benefit my patients.
The doctors I know and the clinicians I know and these people are evangelical. I mean, they are hugely vested and invested in doing what they believe is very important and good work. It helps them get up in the morning to go to work. So folks who are invested in that kind of zealous way, are going to look at anything that isn't within that vision. They're going to look askance at it. They're going to look at saying that's really weird, or that's a charlatan.
My oncologist, the radiologist, the MRI guy, and everybody we talked to said, he's a quack. You should not do that. I mean, he's dangerous. And we basically said, well, we did our research and this is what we want to do, and you can't do anything for me, so why not? Well, it's not good. It's not smart. It's a fake. It's a scam. He's going to take your money and you're not going to get anything. I mean, it was everything that you'd hear from someone that didn't know anything about it but really didn't want to do it. So, but they weren't in the position that we were in.
It didn't seem that they had any facts and figures and concrete evidence to debunk him.
Good point.
It was just maybe what they had heard.
One doctor told Susan, if you were my sister and you wanted to go to Dr. Burzynski's clinic, I would stand on the runway in front of the airplane to keep you from flying to Houston. He got a little dramatic about it. I got pretty thoroughly annoyed with some of these doctors who would tell me he's a crook, a quack, a charlatan, he's never really cured anybody. And I would ask them, how do you know this? Well, it's just what I've heard. So I would say to them, if you think you're a scientist, how can you go based on just what you've heard?
If Dr. Burzynski's treatment is so effective, and so many of his patients say that it is, why then is it not used here at MD Anderson, one of the nation's leading cancer hospitals? Simple, say doctors here. It doesn't cure cancer.
Well, I don't have any evidence, that's for certain.
Dr. Mari Markman is head of research at MD Anderson.
His claims have certainly not reached the level of acceptance in the medical community.
He says there can be lots of explanations why certain patients recover, but to say it's because of Burzynski's treatment, you can't say that, he says. And if there was such proof, if it worked, you'd be all over it.
Absolutely.
But Dr. Burzynski thinks there may be something else at work. Big institutions may not like being upstaged by an outsider. The doctor at MD Anderson disagrees.
We had actually asked the endocrinologist at MD Anderson about Dr. Burzynski, and he told us he was a quack and that there was no evidence that worked. But at that point, it was like, well, yours doesn't really work either.
I looked at it like, well, if she's got approximately 9 months to live, then, we come over here and we don't have all the side effects. Well, in 9 months' time, which am I going to be better off doing?
Right.
If the ending result is the same.
In 1840, Ignaz Semmelweis, an Austrian obstetrician, noted that over 20%, that's 1 out of 5, women giving birth in the hospital died 4 to 6 days later of puerperal fever. These women were then autopsied in the basement of the hospital. And the doctors who performed these autopsies wore no gloves. Can you imagine that? Believe it or not, they then would leave the autopsy room and go straight to the delivery room to assist other births without even washing their hands. Then Dr. Semmelweis's good friend and fellow physician accidentally cut his finger while he was doing an autopsy. In 6 days, this doctor died with the same signs and symptoms of puerperal fever. All of a sudden, Semmelweis knew. He realized that the doctors were transferring the disease from the autopsy room to the delivery room, and he urged his colleagues to simply wash their hands. For this unforgivable sacrilege, he was drummed out of the medical profession, and he died in an insane asylum. Now today, we have the same kind of arrogant commitment to belief. But with cancer treatment, we have $1 trillion business built on those beliefs. So if you think Semmelweis had a problem, just imagine the problem Dr. Burzynski faces. There was no money involved in hand washing versus non-hand washing.
When you look at what is going on and how Dr. Burzynski is being handled, it is clearly a function of, anytime you have big business, big government, big labor, big pharma, big cancer industry, whatever, they become so wrapped up in protecting the institution, whatever it is, that they forget what their fundamental job is. And what's happened with big pharma and big cancer is they kind of, they've forgotten to be curious about that there might be other opportunities and options out there, and they're focused on protecting their turf.
Due to this reality, combined with the continued failed efforts of state and federal agencies in their attempts to stop Burzynski from continuing to treat patients and expand his research, special interest groups have since launched a relentless propaganda campaign against Dr. Burzynski and his supporters and patients in hopes that this game-changing innovation never reach the open market. And here's why. While most would assume that a breakthrough cancer treatment of this magnitude would be widely celebrated by the industry and encouraged for no other reason than its monetary worth, when one applies the logic and reason of the scientific method to this idea, this theory has no foundation or basis in fact. The primary reason that the cancer industry and its regulatory agencies fear the approval of anti-neoplastons is purely economical. If anti-neoplastons were FDA approved for just one cancer type, even the smallest and obscure of cancer types, like brainstem tumors in children, where anti-neoplastons hold the first cures in medical history, but only afflicts a few hundred children per year, this would mean that anyone of any age diagnosed with any type of cancer, like breast, lung, or liver, could legally insist their oncologist provide them with anti-neoplastons off-label. Given the gentle and non-toxic nature of these medications, most reasonable people would begin to opt for anti-neoplastons as a first line of defense against their cancer, instead of first choosing the outdated modalities of toxic, life-threatening chemotherapy and radiation. Since approximately 40% of all men and women will develop cancer in their lifetimes, the FDA approval of anti-neoplastons on any level will reap financial devastation to the medical industry and could send Wall Street into a downward spiral. Additionally, since these patented medications have been in FDA clinical testing for more than 20 years, theoretically, the patents have expired. But technically, they are still partially protected due to being in the limbo of FDA clinical trials. Once anti-neoplastons are FDA approved for market, the entity owning their patent rights will only have up to 7 years of cornering the cancer treatment market before these medications devolve into a generic drug. Once they become generic, like the antibiotic, their prices will plummet indefinitely, allowing any global drug company to produce and sell anti-neoplastons, effectively destroying the current high-profit paradigm that the cancer industry has relied on for more than 40 years. Due to this stark reality, special interest groups are making every possible attempt to derail the approval of anti-neoplastons, demonize their inventor, while relentlessly trying to confuse the public about the truth of this story and the invention of anti-neoplastons themselves. The primary weapon in this deceitful propaganda is what is defined as an AstroTurf campaign.
What is AstroTurf? It's a perversion of grassroots, as in fake grassroots. AstroTurf is when political, corporate, or other special interests disguise themselves and publish blogs, start Facebook and Twitter accounts, publish ads, letters to the editor, or simply post comments online to try to fool you into thinking an independent or grassroots movement is speaking. The whole point of AstroTurf is to try to give the impression there's widespread support for or against an agenda when there's not. AstroTurf seeks to manipulate you into changing your opinion by making you feel as if you're an outlier when you're not. A carefully constructed narrative by unseen special interests designed to manipulate your opinion. A Truman Show-esque alternate reality all around you. Complacency in the news media combined with incredibly powerful propaganda and publicity forces mean we sometimes get little of the truth. Special interests have unlimited time and money to figure out new ways to spin us while cloaking their role. Surreptitious AstroTurf methods are now more important to these interests than traditional lobbying of Congress. There's an entire industry built around it in Washington. AstroTurfers seek to controversialize those who disagree with them. They attack news organizations that publish stories they don't like, whistleblowers who tell the truth, politicians who dare to ask the tough questions, and journalists who have the audacity to report on all of it. Sometimes AstroTurfers simply shove intentionally so much confusing and conflicting information into the mix that you're left to throw up your hands and disregard all of it, including the truth. Drown out a link between a medicine and a harmful side effect, say vaccines and autism, by throwing a bunch of conflicting paid-for studies, surveys, and experts into the mix, confusing the truth beyond recognition. And then there's Wikipedia. AstroTurf's dream come true. Billed as the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit, the reality can't be more different. Anonymous Wikipedia editors control and co-opt pages on behalf of special interests. They forbid and reverse edits that go against their agenda. They skew and delete information in blatant violation of Wikipedia's own established policies with impunity, always superior to the poor schlubs who actually believe anyone can edit Wikipedia, only to discover they're barred from correcting even the simplest factual inaccuracies. Try adding a footnoted fact or correcting a fact error on one of these monitored Wikipedia pages and poof, sometimes within a matter of seconds you'll find your edit is reversed. In 2012, famed author Philip Roth tried to correct a major fact error about the inspiration behind one of his book characters cited on a Wikipedia page. But no matter how hard he tried, Wikipedia's editors wouldn't allow it. They kept reverting the edits back to the false information. When Roth finally reached a person at Wikipedia, which was no easy task, and tried to find out what was going wrong, they told him he simply was not considered a credible source on himself. A few weeks later, there was a huge scandal when Wikipedia officials got caught offering a PR service that skewed and edited information on behalf of paid, publicity-seeking clients in utter opposition to Wikipedia's supposed policies. All of this may be why, when a medical study looked at medical conditions described on Wikipedia pages and compared it to actual peer-reviewed published research, Wikipedia contradicted medical research 90% of the time. You may never fully trust what you read on Wikipedia again, nor should you.
This anti-Burzynski propaganda campaign began in November of 2011 with science blogs, which nearly went under after accepting paid propaganda messages masked as editorials by corporate giant PepsiCo, as well as science-based medicine, which in turn spawned the website The Houston Cancer Quack under the guise of an AstroTurf organization called the Skeptics for the Protection of Cancer Patients. After this bogus group was established, they opened Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, blog incessantly, start petitions, even comparing Burzynski's FDA-sanctioned activities to the infamous Tuskegee experiment, where doctors intentionally gave scores of African Americans syphilis. This group also launched a grossly deceiving and manipulative website called the Other Burzynski Patient Group, which consists of a list of unconfirmed former patients allegedly treated by Burzynski's organization who allegedly died under its care, without providing the unsuspecting reader full names or sources. This effort was created to usurp a legitimate organization called the Burzynski Patient Group, which has been in existence since the 1990s. This group also bombards the FDA and the Texas Medical Board with petitions, emails, and phone calls accusing those agencies of not doing their job and stopping the Burzynski Clinic and the Burzynski Research Institute from continuing to operate. This group has also managed to fool unsuspecting members of the mainstream press, like Liz Scheibo of USA Today. After they assembled all of these propaganda components on their chessboard, they then deleted the Stanislaw Burzynski and Anti-Neoplaston Wikipedia pages and consolidated them into a single Burzynski Clinic Wikipedia page that they exclusively control. By linking to the articles by members of the press they've manipulated, linking to their own blog posts, while also leaving commentary on PubMed, pretending to be medical experts and reviewers, and then deviously use their own fraudulent medical review commentary as Wikipedia sources to give the illusion that there is overwhelming opposition to the safety and efficacy of anti-neoplastons. This group has also infiltrated and manipulated a global group that calls themselves the Skeptics, a group that ironically promotes critical thinking and the scientific method. The following is what happens when an unsuspecting, card-carrying skeptic who's had the wool pulled over his eyes by this devious group is confronted with fact.
And this has been going on for 35 years with no published results.
That's absolutely untrue.
In a peer-reviewed journal.
That is absolutely untrue. You guys, because you haven't read it, you take the position that it doesn't exist.
Where have those
Let's meet for lunch one day. I'll buy you lunch, and I'll bring you all of the published, peer-reviewed clinical data.
I would love
How
to see
about
it.
that? Okay.
I would love to see it.
But
I have to say, I mean, from where I'm coming from, I've done a lot of research. I haven't found anything other than the
research. Where did you do your research?
You can look on Medline. You can look on PubMed. You can search. I mean, you can search Burzynski. You can search anti-neoplastons.
It's almost like a cancer industrial complex now. And it's heart-wrenching.
I think most people think that they're just going to wake up one morning and find a headline in the newspaper, hey, we just found a cure for cancer, that it's something that is going to be discovered by the pharmaceutical industry. And it's obvious to me, after watching the Burzynski first film and doing the research that I've done, that there are alternative therapies that already exist and that are doing positive things. And then when we have government institutions that use taxpayer dollars that try to fight back against this good that's happening, it's mind-blowing, and I can't sit back and allow that to happen. But he's fighting the good fight, I believe, for a very good reason. To me, that's the definition of what a hero is. So, of course, I'm going to come out today and support that hero, for sure.
I think it's a travesty that a man that is basically bound by his own Hippocratic oath to look after the patients is now being trialed for doing what he was supposed to do, and it calls for a lot of people to stand up against this. It's actually it's very saddening for me personally. I think that a lot of people aren't aware of how bad this really is. I think that unless we all stand up, things aren't going to get any better, and it really puts the onus back on us as a people. Like we've got doctors that have got out and put their lives, their families, their careers on the line, and Burzynski is one of the best examples you can find in the world of that. And we as a people have to stand for these doctors that need our support, that need a voice to stand for them and say the truth is, and to be bold about it.
And I believe they should be exposed to some type of investigation to find out why they did it and why they purposely blindly follow the orders of the people who are behind and who told them to destroy us. So this is something which is a complete nonsense, and which America should investigate, because it should not happen. Hopefully this will be explained and we'll be relieved from this menace which is really hurting us and hurting patients.
You know, a lot of people think that Dr. Burzynski is, I don't know, a fraud or charlatan or crook or whatever they want to think. One thing in life, you should always try and respect the beliefs that other people have, you know? But it's very hard to respect the beliefs of people who really want to see this guy just cleared out, stamped out, killed, well, not killed, but, you know, professionally killed. What I've seen along the way, because I kind of kept all of this away from him. I didn't want to see how much hatred there is for this guy. And I know he's being taken to court again by the Texas Medical Board, for the third time? You know, twice by the FDA. When's it ever going to stop? But I remember Dr. Burzynski saying something to me. I said, why do you keep doing this, you know? And he said, I have to, you know, I have to keep going. He said, but I probably won't get recognized for this work until I'm dead. And, you know, there isn't a day goes by when I don't think how lucky we are, but how it scares the crap out of me that there are a lot of people who might never get this treatment, and there's a lot of people who are convinced, absolutely 100%, that this treatment doesn't work. She was accepted on a phase 2 clinical trial, it worked, and she's trying to get on with her life as best as she can. Whereas for me, it's a little bit different, because I feel a massive debt to him, and I get contacted probably every 2 or 3 weeks by someone with a brain tumor asking me for help and advice. And we want to say thank you, obviously, to you, Eric, because if you hadn't have made this film, I probably never would have found out about the treatment. I want to say a massive thank you to Dr. Burzynski and all of the people in his clinic, because, you know, they went to great lengths to help us.